had to question it. Where did this come from? Who said it? How's it authentic? All right, now I'm a teenager doing this. I'm not somebody that's highly schooled and needed all these resources and scholarly. No, I just had to question, why do I believe I can behave the way I was behaving 6 days a week, and I think on 7th day it's going to be okay if I have some communion? And communion just sounds a lot like cannibalism with drinking blood and eating flesh. Peace. I'm Coach Nazir, one of the authors of Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored and one of the co-founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships. And I'm the coach that helps people get their shit together. So with that being said, I'm asked a lot of times, well, can you mentor my son? Or, can you coach us on these things, whether it's in relationships or in finances and so on. And I just want to put some distinctions out there when it comes to coaches and mentors in particular. See, where I come from, I was told, by the time you're 21, you'll be locked up or dead. I heard this a whole lot in my teenage years. As a matter of fact, from people who are the people who are supposed to be encouraging me and loving me the most, these were the ones that were saying it. I guess that was some type of reverse motivation thinking, like, I'm going to be dead and locked up for the time I'm 21. I might as well just do my thing. I didn't really have many expectations. Where I was born and raised at in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Midwest, the ratio of single-parent homes to many people is alarming. For us, it was just normal. And the last I checked, it was about 80% of families, or 80% of families were ran by single women. Okay? And that has a lot to do with the state of the city. Now, when I was coming up, teenage-wise, there were different structures and things in place. So the men that were looked up to many times weren't ones, well, my grandfathers, for example, you skip this generation. Or at least I skipped my father's generation. I was born to my parents at 16. Again, my mother was 16, my father was 16. So it was more my grandparents type thing. Looked up to them, or maybe there were some older uncles or something like that, right? But in Milwaukee, in the Black community in particular, today looks like a difference between night and day. Like in the 90s, I was a teenager. I'm coming into my manhood and everything else. And there were different structures with different gangs or street organizations, as we like to call them back then, where there was a structure. And in that structure, people were respected for holding positions in the structure, on whether it's on certain blocks or certain communities or whatever it may be, so that if there was something that went on, if there was some child that got hit by a car, or there was a shooting that went on, or a woman got hit, or a woman was getting beat up or something like that, they would go to the person in this area or people in that area and be like, listen, man, this is what's going on. And you would think of it like old gangster movies, right? You look at the mafia, or you look at different organizations and organized crime, because this is just a lower level of that, if you will, sometimes street organizations. Lower level of organized crime. But you would go to people that had influence or made individuals that can check things, right? Now, again, I'm not here or there to look and say, well, this was positive and negative at the time. At the time, I thought it was something positive. Now, I can look back at it now and I can say, all right, cool. Now, in these years, that doesn't exist anymore, because as a result of mass incarceration, and Milwaukee really being ground zero for that, where for a number of years, they had more Black people locked up per capita than any other state. And this is the state that has less than 6% of Black people. But more Black people locked up, more Black men in particular. And what that does to the family, we are reaping the results of that right now. All right, so the question is, who do you look up to? Back then, we looked up to people who ran the streets. So who are we looking up to now? And how does that affect things now? Well, because my father was in my life doesn't necessarily mean he was a good mentor or role model. I mean, I'll take it. I say, listen, he was the perfect example of what not to do. Okay, he taught me a whole lot of things not to do. So there are a lot of things I don't ingest. There are a lot of ways I don't treat women. There's a lot of things I don't do. So what was normal in my household, which I come to find out just not my household, just normal in my community in general, and not even just my community, in the country, is normal dysfunction. I mean, so whether you're talking about alcoholism, whether you're talking about domestic violence, whether you're talking about molestation, we're talking about all these different vices and drug abuse and so on and so forth. These things were common. Not something you brag about or go ahead and talk, but this is something that is known. So if somebody had a problem in their house or some other things are going on, yeah, kids, less than 10 years old trying to comfort each other or trying to seek solace with somebody else that at least has their back or tries to support them. You know what I'm saying? So I was looking as a young man, we have this thing in us as men. All right, and I think Dr. John Henry Clark talked about it a while ago, talking about these warriors. But we have this thing in us as men, this testosterone, to be warriors, to be providers, to be protectors. But if that doesn't get shaped in the proper way, then we turn it on the wrong things. It's not getting taken out of us no matter how many times the media or society or individual want to effeminate us. They want to go ahead and castrate us as being strong, assertive men. Or when we speak directly, they say, oh, it's toxic masculinity. Or if we're aggressive and assertive and we're direct about something like Malcolm, for example, then, oh, you can articulate very well, but now he's violent for propagating self-defense and protecting yourself, right? So that thing with my father didn't exist. Again, he had me when he was 16 years old. You know, how he was raised in the household he came from with my grandfather, I can't tell you the details about it. He didn't necessarily enjoy, necessarily speak about it like that. But I looked for people that appeared stronger, and he was one of the main reasons I started working out at like 11, 12 years old, because I was a little scrawny, little skinny guy. And I was like, no, I need to be a man. My mother's in a relationship with my father. There's domestic abuse and violence going on, and I'm supposed to be the man. So I had this little feeling inside of me, I need to do something. But I couldn't do anything, I'm scrawny and small. You know what I'm saying? So having other friends who had access to different things and other young men, you know, gave me a more feeling of some camaraderie, some other family, another group that I belonged, right? And they were not judging me. They're not necessarily great examples of people. They came for that normal dysfunction that was set up. All right, so just having a father around or being present doesn't mean he's being intentional or proactive in raising men, which goes to the need of real mentors. All right, coaches, they don't have to be your friends. See, one of the things about the truth in coaching and mentoring is that a lot of people think you have to be friendly and be friends with your coach, and you have to be friends with a mentor. No, you don't. You just have to be willing to learn and to grow and to do what they say. That's what a coach does. See, Phil Jackson had to be friends with Michael Jordan. He just had to recognize, listen, Mike, you're weaker in these areas, you're great in these areas, but this is how we win the ultimate goal. Now, Phil Jackson could never beat Mike even in his prime. But Phil was the coach that led him to several championships. Then he also went to LA, several more championships, right? He has a book called 11 Rings and really breaks down his story. But the coach is not there to make you bitter. It's to make you better. See, a mentor is not there to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. We must understand that when it comes to mentors and coaches, because you might not like them, but you don't have to like them if you want to get better. You'll like the results the information and the experience brings you, if you're emotionally mature enough to accept that and recognize we have to step out of our own egos. So if it's not your father, it can be somebody else's father. Robert Kiyosaki broke that down, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His father was highly educated, died broke. His friend Mike's father, not educated, highly schooled, but died extremely rich, leaving his children many, many millions in very, very important land in Hawaii. So that's an example of a mentor and a coach, where he didn't take his father as his mentor and coach when it came to learn how to make money. But he did follow his path when it came to empowering and teaching other people in the educational field. What I suggest when trying to choose mentors as you evolve throughout life is to first question everything that you've been taught anyway. Check your belief system. Why do you believe a certain thing? You know, I came up and I was thinking that marriage between one man and one woman. So when I heard of polygyny, meaning a man having multiple wives, it sounded strange to me. I didn't know why, but I questioned my belief system. I questioned my religion. I'm sitting to you right now talking to you, I have a kufi on and all that, you know, I'm Muslim and stuff, a super 150 suit looking fresh, right? At least I think so. But I had to question my beliefs. So I had to question it when it came to, I wasn't interested in Islam or becoming Muslim. Not at all. I was raised in a Christian household, went to Christian school, know the Bible through and through. Right? Believed all kind of stuff that they taught me, stuff about the Trinity in church and Jesus being God or Son of God, I used to believe that stuff. But then I had to question it. Where did this come from? Who said it? How's it authentic? All right, now I'm a teenager doing this. I'm not somebody that's highly schooled and needed all these resources and scholarly. No, I just had to question, why do I believe I can behave the way I was behaving 6 days a week, and I think on 7th day it's going to be okay if I have some communion? And communion just sounds a lot like cannibalism with drinking blood and eating flesh, right? So what I would suggest is to question the beliefs that you have right now, but to also consult the dead. Now, not some old voodoo weird, let's talk to the ancestors and they're guiding me and all that. No, the ancestors are dead and we're all gonna die. Consulting the dead meaning that, you know what? You can consult mentors that you've never met that aren't even living right now because they're in books. All right, maybe in recordings where they're not around anymore. So whether it's the autobiography of Malcolm X, for example, to see his transition, how he grew. Or it could be money, you'd be looking at the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. I really like autobiographies. But you can consult people who are no longer here, and they can be your mentors and coaches. That doesn't mean you have to follow everything, because you have your own agency as an individual. One of the great books in finance and even in life philosophy is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. There's a chapter in this book. It's called Think and Grow Rich. Not go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and grow rich. Think and Grow Rich, right? Amazing book. The original, not the one, because the copyright ran out, not the ones that they remix and remaster and all that. Skip that. Go to the original written in the early 1930s. But there's a whole chapter on the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, may peace and blessing be upon him, that talks about persistence. Now, why would a book called Think and Grow Rich have a chapter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That just lets you know something about that time in history and everything else. But you can have a mentor like Napoleon Hill. And all he did was interview people over 20 years. He was commissioned by, Andrew Carnegie, one of the first billionaires in the country in the steel industry, to interview his friends, wealthy people, to come with the common principles that they had. He came with 13 of them. Do you think it'll save you some time, some energy, some money, over 20 years to get these 13 principles and implement them in your life right now? Absolutely. So my mentor told me that. He's like, look, Nazir, if you want to get better at learning money, if your father didn't do it, he didn't teach it to you. If your grandfather didn't do it, he said, matter of fact, who was your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather? Now, of course, it get a little challenging and tested with me because I'm dealing with people who are, kidnapped and enslaved in chains and everything else. So I got some other stuff going on when I look into my history. But he said, one of the reasons most of us don't know our fifth great-grandfather is because they didn't leave us anything. They didn't leave us land or a dynasty or a legacy. They didn't leave us anything. In my case, again, a little bit different. I don't know about yours. But when you leave something, you want to study and learn from that. You came from that. We came from this different greatness. These things are inside of us. But until you manifest and bring it out, you're not separating yourself from the trivial many. So that mentorship and coaches helps increase your leadership, increase your vision, and helps overall increase. You can decrease on your own. But the fact of the matter is we're dying. So utilizing mortality motivation towards our death can help fire you up, or it should. But you know how I feel about shooting all over yourself. So do what it takes. With that being said, find a good coach, good mentor. It can be me. Hey, Coach Nazir, help people get their shift together. It cannot be me, but do better, be better. The world deserves the best you. See what I'm saying? So remember, wish changes nothing, but a decision changes everything. Stone Lake. Peace.
We are also the authors of the new ebook, The Polygamy Roadmap. Two different roadmaps, one specifically for men and the other
for women.
Naturally. So no matter where somebody is in their journey, whether they're considering it and what's required, especially men I'm talking to, I share the 5 requisites on really what it takes to build a healthy, successful polygynous family unit. So with that being said, make sure if you're a man and if you're serious, not just curious, you take action and get it today.
And in the women's polygamy roadmap, we talk about the different feelings that women might go through with emotions of fear, challenge, betrayal, jealousy.
Yes, and we give you some good insight as well as tips, anecdotes, as well as some of our stories of struggle in the polygamy roadmap too for women. And you will find out really how to have a type of confidence in yourself after reading this. I'm truly, truly in the mindset that you would anyway.
Indeed. So do what you got to do. And that means go to polygamyroadmap.com, grab your copy. We look forward to you benefiting from it and joining us in our private community. With that being said, Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.